This boy is Brandon Burlsworth. That day, he had just been baptized. When they were home, Brandon complained to his mother because people kept calling him fat, but his mother encouraged him by saying that God had a reason to make him that way. Besides, he didn't mean to take what people said for granted because only God knows what is best for him. Brandon had an older brother named Marty, who was 17 years older than Brandon. One day, Marty was fed up with his brother who never did anything but sit on the couch, watching TV while stuffing his mouth with snacks. For a 12-year-old boy, Brandon had a bigger body than boys his age. No matter what Marty told him, Brandon didn't budge and kept doing what he liked. While looking at an American football player on the television, Brandon suddenly said that he wanted to be just like them. His mother just supported whatever Brandon wanted to do, despite not knowing whether he was serious or not. Their mother was a mother figure that will support whatever her children wanted as long as it is a good thing. At school, Brandon joined the football team. Since it was his first time playing and not knowing the rules, Brandon was scolded by his coach after messing up the match. Marty and his mother, who was watching at that time, were also ridiculed by other spectators. A high school coach named Coach Tice, who happened to be watching, then approached Brandon and encouraged him by saying that if he really intended to be a better player, then he had to be the first to come to practice and be the last to go home. After practice, Brandon was picked up by his father because that night he was going to stay at his father's house. Brandon's parents had been separated for a long time because his mother couldn't stand his alcoholic father anymore. Before leaving, Marty warned his father not to get drunk during Brandon's stay, but it turned out that Brandon's father's drinking habit hadn't gone away. In the morning, when Brandon saw his father drunk, he immediately called Marty to pick him up. When Marty got there, he told his father to never interfere with their life anymore. A few years later, Brandon entered high school and joined the high school football club. As Coach Tice said long ago, Brandon was always the first to come to practice, even before the coach. Coach Tice asked why Brandon always came early, even though he wasn't part of the main team. Brandon was confused because he was just doing what he was told. He then asked if Coach Tice thought he was just wasting time because, different from the others, he had to try hard first to get what he wanted. Coach Tice then told him that when two players had the same achievement, but one of them got it after hard work, and the one that worked harder would be easier to maintain his form. That day, Brandon and Marty went to watch the University of Arkansas football team practice as well as to approach Coach Bender of Arkansas University. He wanted to get the attention of the coach. It was a dream of Brandon to join one of the NFL league teams, and in order to do that, he had to join a college league team first to attract the attention of the NFL team's scouts. Usually, the college will provide scholarships for talented kids they wanted to recruit to join the college football team, and that was Brandon's reason to approach Coach Bender. Unfortunately, because there were so many players who wanted a scholarship, Coach Bender was not interested in helping Brandon. He said that Brandon was still the size of a high school boy. He was still underweight to play football at university. Brandon confidently said that he could grow even bigger. Long story short, after graduating from high school, Brandon got a scholarship at Arkansas Tech University. His family was very happy to receive the good news, but Brandon's face did not show a happy expression. Instead, he tore up the scholarship letter. Apparently, Brandon wanted to enter the University of Arkansas, not Arkansas Tech University. So basically, he wanted to get a scholarship at the University of Arkansas so he could join his dream team, namely the Arkansas Razorbacks. Marty then explained that Brandon shouldn't waste the opportunity. He'd get a bachelor's degree for free. Even Coach Tice also said that he wouldn't waste the chance. Up until high school graduation day, Brandon still refused to go to Arkansas Tech University. Marty was angry at Brandon, considering their family's economy was not stable enough, but Brandon insisted on enrolling in the University of Arkansas without a scholarship. Brandon didn't even think about how to pay semester fees and cover living expenses. At night, Brandon overheard his mother taking care of some bills. At that time, Brandon realized maybe his ego had gone too far. He had given up and was going to enter Arkansas Tech University, but it turned out that for the sake of his dream, his mother made a loan to the bank to pay for a whole year for Brandon to study at the University of Arkansas. Brandon was very happy and said that he would take advantage of that 1 year to be able to get a scholarship and return his mother's money. His mother sincerely supported Brandon as much as she could. The distance to campus was not too far from home. It only took about 90 minutes to drive to get there. Not only received support from his mother, but his brother also supported him by giving him a cell phone so he could call anytime if he needed something. When he arrived at his dream campus and was about to start attending training on the football team, Brandon became the subject of ridicule from other new players because his body was fat. Coach Bender indeed told him that he was underweight to join the football team, but that didn't mean he had to make himself fatter to meet the requirement. Coach Bender said that he might not be able to play as a starter. As per the rules there, Brandon, who is a walk-on player, only played a role in helping with the training of the scholarship players, but he still had a chance to prove himself capable to get a scholarship. During the training session, Brandon was the lowest in performance, which made him the jokes of the team. He had too much body fat, making him unable to move freely.
Obviously can't hit us. Not good enough. Go.
After seeing Brandon's perseverance following training that day, Coach Bender approached him, then said that everything was not about strength and size, but the foundation of skills. He explained to all new players that the front and back players aren't the most skilled players, but those who put in effortless training for their game. Instead, the midfield players are the true skilled players. Coach Bender didn't differentiate between any players, even though the players were walk-on players. Brandon was still given the same instructions and exercises as the other team members. Other coaches asked Coach Bender why he wanted to spend time training the walk-on players even though there were only 2 weeks before the season started. Coach Bender then replied that everyone had the same opportunity and that he believed they might find hidden talent if they gave the same chance for everyone. Some players were selected to participate in the preparation for the season that year's game had been chosen, and Brandon failed to get the opportunity to compete, which meant he also didn't get the chance to get a scholarship that year. After practice, he approached Coach Bender and said that at the end of that year, he should be able to get a scholarship. Unfortunately, Coach Bender couldn't help him, so Brandon could only try to maintain his uniform until the next season. And if he failed the next season, he had to give up on his dream. Their quota was small, and there were still many people waiting to fill a quota. Brendan's problem was not only that, but his classmates also continued to bully him. Brandon was considered strange with all the daily schedules he made and was also considered a mama's boy because every week, Brandon would meet his mother. Brandon felt discouraged and guilty to his mother. But when he told his mother that he didn't get a scholarship, his mother still encouraged him without regret. When he returned to college to practice as usual, but during practice he almost injured a player. Coach Bender was angry with him, but he still helped Brandon when all the players were calling Brandon names. After finishing training, Coach Bender approached Brandon. Out of sympathy for Brandon's perseverance, Coach Bender decided to help Brandon lose weight. Since then, Brandon would start training first and finish practice later than others. Every day, his weight continued to drop and his playing technique was getting better, so his friends who used to bully him felt amazed by him.
Oh boy, son.
Come on. Hey. Line, through the line. Let's go.
Out of the way. Watch it, big boy.
We did it, Coach.
When he tried to one-on-one with the best players among them, no one expected him to manage to win, even though Coach Bender didn't actually tell him to win, but just to use his technique correctly. Everyone was surprised by Brandon's change. He was finally recognized by the other players for the first time. That night, Brandon was invited to drink at the bar. His friends deliberately ordered a drink containing alcohol, even though they all knew Brandon did not drink alcohol. After finishing 2 glasses of drink, Brandon said that he only had the opportunity for 1 year to study there, and he said that he would always remember their kindness. All of a sudden, the atmosphere turned awkward. Suddenly, a waitress came to them and said that the alcohol had run out. Knowing he was being pranked by his friends, he was very disappointed and left there. Feeling guilty for drinking the alcohol, Brandon decided to take a run in the pouring rain. His friend wanted to leave him alone, but because they felt guilty, they decided to run with him. They then made up after that. Long story short, that season's games finally started. Their team supporters were so crowded that their voices were able to shake the whole stadium. The night after the game, Brandon was told by Coach Bender that he got a full scholarship from the University of Arkansas, so he could continue his studies and training. Brandon immediately told the happy news to his family. His mother and brother were very happy and did not expect Brandon to actually succeed in doing what he said. In 1997, during a match against Florida, Brandon's vision suddenly got blurred, so he could not play well. At that time, he immediately told his coach there was something wrong with his eyesight. That very day, Brandon was given glasses to help his vision. Seeing Brandon's new appearance with glasses made his teammates laugh because they felt funny. A few days later, Brandon received news that his father was hospitalized due to lung cancer. Brandon said that he would continue the training, but Coach Bender suggested that Brandon visit his father first. Finally, Brandon went with Marty to the hospital to visit their father. His father expressed his regrets to Brandon and asked him to take good care of his mother. Shortly after Marty and Brandon prayed for their father's recovery, their father sadly passed away. That season, the Arkansas Razorbacks were having a bad season after some losing streaks. Arkansas's Razorbacks then changed coach and planned to reform the team. Brandon asked Coach Bender what he could do to enter the NFL. Coach Bender told him to try his best to be All-American, an award for the best players in various sports in America. Unfortunately, it was Brandon's last year in the team. Coach Bender wasn't even sure the new coach would play Brandon, let alone get the All-American award. He told Brandon not to have too high hopes, as only less than 2% of college elite players would be drafted into the professional NFL players, and they were talented people. Brandon thought he just needed to play well, but Coach Bender reminded him that football is a team game. Scouts usually only paid attention to teams that always win. The next day, the new coach found Brandon still at the training ground until late. Brandon said that they didn't need to reform the team because he planned to win in that year's game, the last year Brandon could play with a team. A few years later, the revival of Arkansas's Razorbacks started with a new coach and a new program. Knowing that it was his last year in college, he had to do his best with the team in order to achieve his dream. He then made a summer camp to train his friends the way he trained himself, and despite his friends almost losing it at the beginning and didn't want to bother in their last year, Brandon always encouraged and forced everyone to take part in the training.
Set, hit!
They're still terrible!
Since then, Brandon was also made the team captain by his coach. Their effort paid hugely as they managed to win their first match that season, and surprisingly, 57 walk-on players performed amazingly as an effect of what Brandon did. Victory after victory they continued to achieve as their team's reputation increased. Brandon's habit began affecting his friends. Their supporters came back even bigger than before, and after going through 8 wins in 8 matches, they finally faced the best team in America at that time. The journey of the Arkansas Razorbacks that year became a legend for the world of sports, and Brandon became the main star who was predicted to be the best walk-on player in the history of university football. Finally, it was time for the match that everyone had been waiting for. The match was intense, with the score difference very close. Arkansas and the supporters were very confident that year would be their victory as the national champions. But at the last minute, Brandon accidentally tripped a friend who was carrying the ball. Sadly, thanks to that, their team lost the ball. Their hopes were dashed immediately. In the end, they had to accept defeat, and the title of the best team in America was still held by Tennessee. After the match, Brandon approached his friend who had stumbled to apologize. He told his friend to say something so people wouldn't blame him. Brandon didn't want his friend to be blamed for what he did, but his friend said it wasn't his fault. Falling is part of the game, but it doesn't give the right to drop the ball. Stout with guilt, Brandon said the ball wouldn't have fallen if his feet weren't in the way. His friend asked him to let him take the consequences for dropping the ball and not have to feel guilty about him. Brandon then cried in Coach Bender's arms. A few days later, Brandon and his family were shocked by the announcement of the All-America Award winner as Brandon's name was announced to win the award. Brandon and his family were extremely happy with the news because it meant that Brandon would be recruited to become a professional NFL player, and sure enough, Brandon was immediately recruited by the Indianapolis Colts. After officially joining the team, Brandon followed the Indianapolis Colts minicamp activities as the youngest. Unexpectedly, Brandon was immediately appointed to be a starter for the next season's game. He felt happy and weird at the same time because usually, to get what he wanted, he had to work really hard first. But for the first time in his life, something he wanted coming so easily. His coach said it wasn't easy because Brandon had worked hard for years to get it. Sometime later, Brandon met his coach and teammates again in Arkansas. He was invited to attend his own farewell party. He said he couldn't come because he had an appointment with his mother that night, and tomorrow he had to go back to Indianapolis. Brandon admitted that he always missed home when he arrived in Arkansas. After that, he drove home, and at the same time, Marty was also on his way home. As soon as Marty arrived, he was surprised by some police cars that were parked on the porch and his mother's hysterical voice from the house. It turned out that the police came to inform him that Brandon had an accident that sadly claimed his life. That reality stopped Marty's world for a moment, but his thoughts were gone after his mother screamed his name. They never thought Brandon would go so fast at the age of only 22, and he had just managed to fulfill his dream of joining the NFL team. At the funeral, Marty said to his mother why Brandon, who had worked hard and was only about to enjoy the results, was taken away so quickly by God. His mother answered that the answer to that question was only in Brandon's life. He couldn't accept the reality that a kind of strong-willed person like Brandon had to leave the world so fast. But then these thoughts disappear when they realize that Brandon has succeeded in inspiring many people.
You can only see the inches right in front of his face.
Thanks, cheesecake.
After that, the University of Arkansas gave 18 scholarships, and one of them was for a talented walk-on player. Later, the Brandon Burlsworth Foundation was built to help visually impaired children and provide free tickets to watch football matches to motivate them. In addition, Marty also built the Brandon Football Camp to teach Brandon his way of football. In 2010, the Burlsworth Trophy was created, which was given to the best player who started his career as a walk-on player. Brandon's locker has been maintained since 1999 to serve as a reminder for Arkansas's Razorbacks players.